Welcome to this week's edition of What I Crush, and I'm super excited to be talking today with one of my favorite people, Jordan Davis. Jordan and I have been coaching together for 4 years, 5 years now.
4 years.
Yeah, a long time in the coaching world. And last year, her team, oh my gosh, I mean, this thing has grown so much over the past 4 or 5 years. Not because of me, because she's awesome. But last year, you guys did over 50 million and about 209 transactions. Is that correct?
Yeah, 58 million and 209.
209. Now, here's the thing. There's an inside joke that Jordan started within Keller Williams, and she says that I look like the old man from Up. So sometimes, see, she even wears her glasses on the our coaching calls and when we speak publicly. So if you hear that joke or you see her post pictures of that dude from Up on my Facebook wall, you'll know why she's doing that. And today we're going to talk about open houses. And Jordan's team, I think, really does go above and beyond on open houses. And so, Jordan, they're not here to listen to me talk. But first off, just tell us, who you are, the areas that you serve, because obviously our job is to get you referrals for investing your time in us today.
Yeah, so my name is Jordan Davis, and I own the Davis team out of Dallas-Fort Worth. We actually serve every bit of Dallas-Fort Worth. We are based out of Arlington and have agents strategically placed all over the Metroplex. So I get that question a lot. What part of Dallas-Fort Worth do you serve? And technically, we actually serve it all and travel up to an hour and a half from Arlington. So it is all of DFW, and we would love to help you and your clients. We do a ton of agent-to-agent referrals in our business, and we are successful in getting that closed and communicating with you.
Sweet. Awesome. So all of Dallas and Fort Worth is the area that they cover, and I'm certain that we will get you some referrals for investing your time here today, Jordan. So let's jump in. Out of all the lead generation sources that there are, what was it that made you go so big into open houses?
Well, first and foremost, they're free. So that was a big plus for us. We were starting a big marketing push on our team in our organization, and we were actually losing money. We were bleeding money. Every month we were losing in the slow season $3,000 to $7,000 a month. That was my husband and I both in real estate full time, and neither of us taking home our commission, just putting it back into the business, putting it back into the business, and we kept losing money. So of course, when we looked at what other form of lead generation would be effective, free was mandatory for us. But we also read 4 Disciplines of Execution, which if you can see the copy of my book, like it is nicely tattered and torn and all that. This was referred to me by Lance Loken, actually, with the Loken Group, who had said it was a really good book for implementation. And so most importantly, they were free. It was something we could measure. It was something that we already had the listings and our clients were wanting them to be held open. And so really it was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. 4 Disciplines of Execution is an incredible book. We call it 4DX for short. And it's all about lead measures and lag measures, and wanting to move a lag measure, meaning I want to get more closings, right? And so what are the activities that I can take that would equate, to a lead measure? If I do X amount of this lead measure, it will result in Y lag measure. And so that became very much what could we control, and open houses was just our choice. It could have been door knocking, it could have been mailers, although that didn't qualify under free, so that wasn't going to be it.
Got it. So, Jordan, a lot of times, and we've all heard this as agents, you'll hear an agent invariably say, open houses don't work, right? And so what would you say to an agent that thinks that way, that thinks that open houses don't work?
First and foremost, 42 of our transactions came from people we met at open houses. So that's 20% of our business last year. So I think that stands alone as clearly open houses work. I do hear that a lot. Honestly, anything works if you work it. Now, does it yield the return that you're looking for? That's the big question. also, you just have to be committed long-term to it. When I say that 42 closings came from open houses, maybe those were open houses last year, right? I didn't specifically source them to 2020 open houses. But when we look at how many open houses we did versus how many closings we've done systematically and consecutively, they've led to 20% of our business year over year. And Freed, when you and I started coaching together, I think we had closed 45 homes. We went to 90, we went to 157, and now 209. And consistently, open houses have been 20 to 25% of that business.
And she calls me Freed because if you haven't noticed, we're both named Jordan, and it's the same way too. So if you hear her call me Freed or Fredrickson, who is the dude from Up, you'll know who she's talking to. Okay, so that's great, Jordan. So 20% of your business, and what is it that you guys do differently, you think, that that leads to those results? When so many people fail in this arena, what is it specifically that you all do different that maybe other agents don't?
We do them.
Okay, that's one.
Not sometimes, all the time. Our team consistently has 8 to 12 open houses a week. And we do them all at a high level per our standard operating procedure, which I can share with you. And so it's not just kind of, and it's not partially. In fact, part of our SOP is that there are 12 signs at every open house. And we also drive around and audit them as leadership. We'll just drop in on one of our open houses while we're out and about at Costco and make sure that the agents are putting up a minimum of 12 signs and making sure that the standard operating procedures are being followed. And so we're consistent in the way that we go about that. We also put the open house in MLS before we ever put the listing in, or before we ever take the listing live, or before we ever have a price reduction. There's also a teaser. We have an in-house lender, Keller Mortgage, that allows you to save $1,000 with no lender fees. We'll put that teaser in there, and then we'll put in there that there's an open house before we go live. Because what happens is, as it syndicates to outside portals, it's a new listing, and immediately buyers see that there's also an open house. So rather than clicking, to an agent, tell me more about this home, they're like, oh, there's an open house. I can just stop by there on Saturday. Great, this is perfect. Because people want to visit with the listing agent. They want to come see the home. They don't want to have to talk to an agent and go get pre-qualified even before they do that. So we're generating a lot of traffic and pushing people that way because before the house ever comes live, it's partnered with an open house. Probably not even just one, probably more like 3.
Okay, so what I heard you say is, number one, you've got to do open houses, and it sounds like you got to do a lot of them, right? I mean, it's something that you have to fully commit to. Number two is that we have a minimum of 12 signs. When do the signs go out? If the open house is on a Saturday or Sunday, when do you put the open house signs out typically, Jordan?
Typically on a Thursday, especially for a new listing, we will put that there's going to be an open house Saturday. We'll put a sign out in front of the front yard, so anybody driving by. But honestly, our agents just arrived 15 minutes prior and put the directional signs out with the open house. We found that if we put them out much earlier, then people were very confused when the home wasn't open.
Got it. Okay. And then the last piece that you said, well, you used the words standard operating procedure. So what does that mean if I'm kind of a new, like, SOP? What is an SOP?
Yeah, so if you have never met my husband, Matt Davis, SOPs and checklists and systems are totally his jam, and they are totally not mine. But one of the things that we do as a team is we keep these standard operating procedures that we update accordingly. In fact, he's so detailed that we even have to update the date when we update it so that we know if we're working on the most updated version or not. So let me share my screen real quick and I'll show you the SOP that we have, which somehow over the course of loading this, I got locked out of, but let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. But this is our open house SOP, and every agent is provided this. So on Tuesday, we select the open house. We have a draft for our team where we talk about new listings and price reductions. And on the team, creating a culture of open houses, we draft what open houses are the agents are going to do. We draft those in order of agent production. So one of the problems that we found was that less productive, less converting agents were getting great open houses, we wanted to put our highest converters on our best open houses. And so we give them first draft. Now, when you have 3 open houses on every listing, agents get plenty of chances to hold open houses. But this is an example of the open house sign. Tuesday, we draft them. Wednesday, we make sure that they get put into MLS. 2 days before the open house, we put this sign out. On Thursday, we start posting to social media and that kind of content. We call and invite all the neighbors, and we do a voicemail drop to all the neighbors, inviting them out to the open house. We make sure and book it in what we call showing time, which is our showing service. Confirm that your open house packet that the admin team delivers on your desk is correct and that it has everything that you need, including business cards and including appointment cards that say, kind of like the dentist's office, my next appointment is at, date and time. This is my listing or buyer appointment with the Davis team is at this date and time. So they leave with appointment cards from the open house. And then we have social media platform posts, etc., signage, how to put out signs, where to put out signs, and then what to say during the open house. Additionally, scripts for follow-up after the open house. And I'll make all this available in my Facebook group, Real Estate Plus Real Life. I have a Facebook group where you can follow that and anything else like videos or anything that I do. But scripts and everything for Monday open house follow-up, etc.
Okay, what was the name of that Facebook group one more time?
It's Real Estate Plus, the plus sign, Real Life.
Okay, so if they want a copy of that, they can go join that Facebook group, and it's probably already posted there, right? They can go.
It's in documents already, but we'll refresh it. Julie just posted again, Real Estate Plus Real Life, right there.
Okay, perfect. So I think it's pretty clear to see, Jordan, like what it is that you all do differently. I think most agents, when they look at thinking of doing an open house on a Sunday, they're probably starting to think, oh, on Friday, okay, now I know I'm going to do this open house. You guys are planning this a week in advance almost, right? By Tuesday is when you're drafting and getting ready for an open house that's going to be held that weekend. So there's several things that lead up to this, which are what drive traffic and what allow you to get so many people through. So what would you say if I'm a new agent or somebody that is really looking at adding this to my lead generation machine for 2021? What are the failures that you all have incurred, and what have you learned from the failures in doing so many high-level open houses?
So I hear you saying ushering a lot of people in, and that's actually not our goal. In fact, that was a failure at one time. I see a lot of things where people get on and talk about driving 100 people to an open house. To me and for our team, it matters more the connections that you make at the open house as opposed to how many attended. 30 people coming through an open house could equate to no relationships at all whatsoever, right? If you have 30 people through and you didn't set an appointment, that open house was a failure. Not only was it a failure, it was a big failure, right? I've worked an open house on a Tuesday at 2:00 in the afternoon in a new construction community on a house that wasn't selling, had one family come through. They told me they had a realtor, and 2 weeks later, I had a listing agreement signed, and 2 months later, we had a closing. That is a successful open house, and one person came through the door. So to me, successful is an appointment. If you can get an appointment out of that open house, I don't care if one person attended, I don't care if 30 people attended. What matters most is the lead generation. We also let the sellers know that our first job, first and foremost, is to sell their home. And if that home won't work for them, then we're going to go into selling ourselves. So they know up front, open houses are a lead generation source. Probably the biggest failure was not setting the precedence for open houses at the listing appointment. We learned to start adding that as a value proposition for our listing appointment, because what we found was that sellers would say, I don't want open houses. I don't want people tracking through my home. They let their friends, their family, or other agents influence whether they had open houses or not. So eventually we started tracking how many of our offers came from people who visited open houses, and 15% of our homes actually sell from a buyer who came through an open house, and very seldom does our agent represent them. And so adding that into our listing presentation, that 15% of our home buyers come from an open house that we hold, set the precedence that they then wanted to have open houses.
Got it. Got it. So let's stick with that for a second on because I know you and especially Matt are extremely, data focused. Do you know the numbers on, how many people you need to have come in or to visit to create a closing or an appointment? Do you have the numbers on that you guys have tracked?
So on average, we have 5 visitors, unique visitors at each open house. 8 open houses should lead you to 4 appointments with a good closing ratio. 4 appointments should lead you to 2 signed or 2 taken clients, and that should equal to 1 closing. That's what our numbers from complete stranger, haven't met, to get down to signed and closed. So if you know that you want a closing, like let's say, for example, you decide that you want 26 closings a year from open houses, then you can back that into times 8, and you need about 200 open houses a year in order to back into 26 closings simply from open houses.
Got it. And would you mind chunking those numbers down for us one more time? So
Yeah.
The number of unique visitors starting there, you said if you have on average 5 unique visitors, just start from there again.
Yeah, so 5 unique visitors on average for 8 open houses will equate to 4 appointments.
Okay.
4 appointments is 2 signed per our numbers, 2
Okay.
signed buyer rep agreements or listings, and that will equate to 1 closing.
Got it. Okay.
And that's long-term data. Like, you have to be committed to the long term. So in the spring or like early winter, you may not see those numbers, right? But but in the summer, your numbers are even better. So you have to be committed to that activity in order for that to equate.
Right. Okay.
Matt put in the chat, he said 20 unique touches, but that's actually 40. So 8 open houses, 40 visitors, 4 appointments, 2 signed, 1 closing.
I love that. And the thing I just want everyone to hear is that how intentional they are with tracking these things, and they know their numbers, right? So if you didn't have the data on 15% of the buyers are coming from an open house, then you wouldn't have the opportunity to have as many open houses as you do, because sellers are fed a bill of goods as well, that open houses don't sell homes. And so I just think that that's worth noting, that you guys do so well at tracking and using that data to, form and make decisions down the road.
Well, and Freed, in this market, there's a tendency for sellers to accept an offer early on and then be like, let's cancel our open houses. And we set them up for, hey, listen, according to MLS, 1 in 5 contracts is falling out. And your first weekend, you only get 1 first weekend on the market. Then everybody starts wondering what's wrong with your home. And so in this heavy of a seller's market, first of all, MLS doesn't require in Texas that we change status for 3 days after acceptance of a contract. So I wait until we get option and earnest money. And if they accept a contract on Friday, we're still having a Saturday and Sunday open house.
Got it. Okay.
And you can always be a backup offer, right? So we just set that precedent that we will still have them. And those are early conversations with sellers that have to happen.
Yeah, and I hope everybody wrote that down. And, obviously after every What I Crush, we do put, notes and scripts and things in the follow-up email. But the thing that she just said is that you only get 1 first weekend on the market. I remember it used to be 1 first month, right? Now it's the weekend, because there's just no inventory in major metros like your area, and probably even smaller markets as well. So
and
Jordan,
I would rather go to a backup offer than come back on the market, because from a perception standpoint, everybody says, why did your offer fall through? And now you've got to air your dirty laundry, right? And versus if you have a backup, you're like, congratulations, it's you. And I mean, they maybe could ask why it fell through, but either way, they're under contract to buy the home.
Yeah, right. And so Jordan, how did this all change with COVID? What were some of the changes that you all had to make in 2020 to still be able to run the amount of open houses that you need to hit your goals?
So at first we went virtual and we videoed the open houses. We found that people didn't care that the agent was actually in the open house at the time, because we would try to be at the open house from 2 to 4, have people register before, and then come back and attend. And they didn't want to do that. So we would get like 30 RSVPs and 2 attendees at the time. And so, which was fine. We captured 30 people's contact information, right? But then eventually we just got to recording the open houses, loading them, and then sponsoring it as an ad, as an agent walkthrough. And so that was pretty successful in generating people to fill out the contact information to see our agent walk through the property on demand, anytime, et cetera. We ran those ads through command. So that was one way we did that. But then once we were allowed to go back into open houses, actually COVID has really helped, because what I mentioned earlier was, I don't care if 30 families come through. If they're all in there at once, you have no opportunity to connect with any of them. Versus now with COVID, you have them waiting at the door and it's one family at a time. We'll bring you in, especially if we expect a heavy open house, we'll bring you in through the front door and we'll escort you out through a garage. So if we expect 30, 40 people at an open house, we'll have 2 agents work it. One will usher them in, walk them around, see them out the garage, while the next one meets the other one walking in. And so that's actually allowed us to build deeper connections, because it's not just this free for all, come in whenever you want. We can kind of traffic control who comes in the door with regards to open houses. And that gives the agent time to build rapport and ask questions.
So the socially distanced open house is actually making it easier for you all to connect with people, because it's more one-on-one. And I imagine that it drives the demand more for the house too, because they're all standing out there, literally standing in line.
Yeah. Right? Yep. And it just gives you that unique opportunity to talk about, have you guys looked into lending solutions? Have you heard, if you worked with our team, that you can get, a 0 fee loan, and on this home that could save you $5,000 in your closing? What would $5,000 do? Would you buy furniture, or what would that do for your family? So you get to really dig at motivation and deliver on your value proposition. The National Association of Realtors says that people who go to open houses on average go to 11 open houses throughout their home buying cycle. So you have to say something different than the other 10. They don't want to hear, this is the kitchen. Wow, thank God you're here. We wouldn't have known if you weren't here.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing too, Jordan, that you all have done really well. And can we just touch on that for a second? You've mentioned it a few times, using Keller Mortgage. How do you, well, for those of you who do not know, or for those that don't know, just tell them real quick what Keller Mortgage is, and then just how do you use Keller Mortgage in the conversion process of open houses?
Yeah, so for us, it started with Keller Mortgage, and now we have Place Mortgage. Place has their own mortgage company in our partnership with Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez. But either way, it's the same value proposition of no origination, no underwriting, no processing fees, plus $1,000 credit at closing. And so as long as the loan's over $150,000, so it becomes the same conversation of why you would want to work with me. It's available on our listing if you want to offer on this listing, or if that doesn't work, then it's available on any home that you purchase through me. As long as there's a Keller Williams agent on the transaction at all, I can get you this great savings that's available. And so we just heavily utilize that to convert and follow up and stay in touch and deliver that value proposition with them.
Yeah, I love that. And, Gary talks a lot about how your message has to match your market. And that's something that I think you all have done really well, because you advertise that on the outside of the house. You advertise it, on the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could talk all day about the things that you've done there. All right, so let's talk about culture on the team, right? So how do you use open houses, or how do you feel open houses create culture on your team, Jordan? Because you guys have strong culture. It's like a family at the Davis team, right?
It is. So I used to have this preconceived notion that as a team leader, it was my job to provide leads and to keep the team fed. And I really had my mindset shift on that when we started doing open houses and leads started cultivating. And there was excitement around it. I think of it like, you're on a 50-50 split. So our team will deliver you 50% of, online leads to call, referrals, agent to agent referrals, past client referrals, etc. The other 50% is on you. How do you want to lead generate? And most of my agents respond back, their sphere and open houses are the two forms that they choose. And so, we just create a whole environment around it. In reading Four Disciplines of Execution, we identified what is our goal for closings, how many open houses do we think we need to do, and what does that process need to look like. That process became an open house draft, which is exciting to draft every week, right? Scoreboards that come in. And so our agents have big scoreboards of how many open houses they've done quarterly, and they earmark them off. We also have, on their calendar, it's time blocked. So it's a part of our culture. We share success stories from open houses in Team Huddle. And so there's excitement around it. And we know that it actually does work, because at first your conversion isn't great, right? And so hearing those stories that worked and what you said to convert them, et cetera, helps. We use it in lead generation when we handle objections, and we talk about it in our lead gen. In our daily power ups, we have open house objections that we help each other handle. We have classes on open houses that our agents teach. I know, Anne and Amanda are our highest converters on the team. I think Anne's on this call, and she's our highest open house converter. She does a great job at open house and having the appointment right there. So whereas Anne has, I'm going to take a lead and I'm going to convert it right at that open house, and we're going to have a buyer consultation right there. Then I've got Amanda, who prefers to set the appointment later and give them like that time aside. Anne doesn't want to risk losing them, right? So you've got two very different viewpoints, and whichever way you fall on the disc may be which way you assess yourself with more. And so mentors that you can connect with on how to convert, et cetera. But also we just talk about it being a big pot of stew, right? And so I have beef, and Kelly has carrots, and Brian has potatoes, right? But if we would all bring it together, we could all have beef stew, or we could just sit alone and eat our potatoes, right? And so that's where the team and having more and doing more and delivering a better value proposition, and they understand like we're better together, but you also have to carry your weight. You got to pick up an oar and help row this boat, because there was a time we were going nowhere. And our theme for the year was grab an oar. Like, we need help rowing. So let's go.
Right. Those are great takeaways. And I just want to remind everyone, as always, we put these recordings in an email, we send them out, and we'll do our best. Jordan talks really fast. And so we'll do our best at getting the scripts and dialogues. And again, make sure that you go to her Facebook page and invite yourself in so that she can approve you, and you can get even more great info from the Davis team. So Jordan, we've got 1 minute. Is there anything else that you feel like this crowd needs to know about open houses?
I think it's just about being in love with the activity. When my husband coaches agents, he just says, be in love with the activity. So be in love with the idea of holding the open house and talking to people. Make it your goal to set one appointment at it. Also have a fallback plan. So you hit your goal. If you held an open house, you hit your goal, even if nobody came to that open house. You did the activity. The lead gen gods are going to reward you with a referral or something like that. Like, we use Brivity as our CRM. We're like, jump into Brivity and call people while you're there for that time. You've already got the time set aside to lead generate. So be in love with the activity, not the result. So many people, like somebody didn't come to their open house, or nobody came to their open house. You don't know who saw their sign. You don't know who saw, wow, they really hustle for their sellers and now is going to call you to list their home. So it's really more about being in love with the activity and not so in love with the result, knowing that the result will follow. It's like working out and then being like, okay, I went for a run. Am I skinny yet? Well, no. It's a habit. It's a habit of the activity.
And, it requires patience, which the world does not have a tremendous amount of, because we typically think that patience. Yeah, I know that about you. Yeah, I'm aware there, sister. And yet, we think patience is just waiting around, and it's not. It's hustle in the micro, patience in the macro, right? So Jordan, thank you so much for pouring into us today. Thank you so much for all that you do. And thank you for making me a legend within Keller Williams, for being the guy from up. Only you could have pulled that off.
Also mentioned your name on stage with Gary Keller. I would think that would be the better legend.
That little detail. Yeah, that's right. So we are at the 30-minute mark. We want to be, thankful for everybody for being here today. Again, Dallas, Fort Worth, all of Dallas. If you got referrals for the Davis team, make sure you go check out the Facebook group. And we will see you on the next episode of What I Crush. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Somebody just called us Jordan Squared, Freed.
I like that. That's a good one. We'll go with that. Hi there, and thank you for watching What I Crush. And if you're enjoying what we're putting down, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Don't forget the bell button, and check us out at whaticrush.com. We'll see you on our next episode.